Hello, welcome back to Going Walkabout. In this episode, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into Flutter again. In the past, I've done an episode on Flutter, and I think Flutter is the platform for me to build the Android app. So let's go and get started. Now, I'm starting with the login sequence. I recently changed the login sequence on the iOS app, and now I'm replicating that login sequence on Flutter. So let's first look at what we have in iOS, and then I'll show you what I've been building so far in Flutter. So here we have a simulator that is running the iOS app, and if we start it, we get into a welcome screen where we can choose to register or to sign up. So if we go to register, we get 3 fields to fill in. We have some logic that the button gets enabled or not. If we go back, we can go into the sign in, and even if we don't remember our password anymore, we can continue to reset our password. And those 3 screens or 4 screens actually make up the login sequence. Now here on the main screen we also have a possibility to see our terms and privacy statement. So all in all, it is quite a bit of work. So now let's go and have a look what I did in Flutter to replicate this and to see how that is actually looking. Now here we have the Flutter app, and as you can see it looks very similar. So we can go to the register, we have the same amount of fields. There's also some logic on enabling this button. It's disabled at the moment. The terms and privacy, there's buttons, but they don't do anything yet because I haven't implemented them yet. And to be honest, I'm waiting a little bit for the iOS implementation of the form sheets that are the modal dialogues, what will soon be available in Flutter. But let's see where that ends up. We can go to the sign in, we have the sign in, and we have the forgotten password. So as you can see, I have replicated the user interface pretty nicely. It's not 100% the same, I could still tweak it a little bit, and I might do that. But I also have the challenge that in the end this is going to become the Android app. And maybe even the iOS app, I don't know that yet. But for now the focus is on Android. And it should be an Android app and not an iOS app on Android, because that doesn't match. So I'm not sure yet how to deal with that. But for some elements I really want to keep the character of the app. So the way I use my input boxes, the way I use what I call in my code my brand button, because this button looks the same in dark and in light mode. It's my brand identity button. I want to keep the same. How I deal with the header bar and some other details, for instance here, these pop-ups for the terms and privacies, they might change. I don't know that yet to become more Android-like. But for now, this is where I am at. And now I'm going to show you how I actually built this in code and what I had to do to make this all work and that it actually is running properly. So I've now switched to my Visual Studio Code, and the first screen we have is the startup screen. That's the screen where you enter, where you can choose to register or sign up. If we go from the top, we see it's a list view because I wanted to make scrolling possible for smaller screens and the keyboard popping up, etc. So we have a logo on top, then we have a button, and as you can see I have created a widget what's called my brand button. Now I'll go into the details of that first, and that exists in 2 types. It's either filled or flat, because I use it later on also as a flat one. I have a little bit of text that I had to align there with some padding. Then I have my same brand button, the flat, for the terms and for the privacy, so 2 buttons below each other. As you saw, we do a divider with the brand color, so I've defined a variable that defines the color of my brand. There's some padding with some text again, and then I have another brand button in the type flat to go to the sign in view as you see here, and of course we went here to the register view. Now this is a very simple screen. It is also relatively easy to build, as you can see. So let's go into the brand button. Now the brand button, I want to have a button with round borders in the brand color with white text on it, etc. And I was looking into what would be my base. I can use a material button, a Cupertino button. For now I chose a Cupertino button because I'm not yet sure if I like those insets or those inkwells very much that you see in how do you call it, Android. But because I wrap it in my brand button, I can easily change this implementation later. And that's the reason why I've done it the way I did it. Now, it's very simple. If it's filled, I render a Cupertino button with a brand color, and I deal a little bit with the disabled and the enabled colors of the text. And when it's flat, I don't have a disabled state, so it's even a more simple implementation. The same I did for my input text fields, because I want input fields with a round border, a slightly grayish different color background with a placeholder text, etc. And for that I just configured basically a raw text field here where I set the correct properties, set the correct borders. I didn't want to have the focus border. I just wanted to keep it really simple and not too many animations on the screen. And for that I created an input text field to deal with it. And that's what you can see if we now go to the sign in window. That's the one where you do the sign in. We again start with the list view. I wanted to do the alignment nicely in the middle, so I put it in a container with the max width, so even on an iPad or a larger device the boxes don't get like really wide. A logo on top, a little bit of text. Then I had my input text field for the email, the input text field for the password, and here I have a button. Or actually I do, the gesture detector on the forgotten password link, that small link that you have there, that I set, and then I have the button to log in. And when we press this button, the brand button to log in, I actually use Firebase authentication to do the real authentication so that we get authenticated in the system. If you really recall an episode I did a long time ago where I discussed whether I should switch to Flutter or not, then you already saw this implementation, because in that project I could already log in. So this is actually code I reused from back then. I did it. And I built a little bit of a message prompt function to show an error. Currently this message prompt, we can see here as well, uses the show dialog, and then it uses the Cupertino alert dialog. So I really replicated the iOS style. But in the future I might change this to do it more Android-like, or in a more generic way that it looks nice on both of them. But for now I just, because I wanted to make it easy for me, wanted to replicate as much as possible that I did in iOS, just to show that it is possible. But again, by wrapping it into a function, you have more flexibility on the implementations later. So let's see how this is running. So let's go to the simulator again. Let's do the sign in, and now we're going to sign in with my demo account, and I can sign in. It's sign in, and I am authenticated now, and I have my tab bar and a very ugly layout to deal with that. And the way this works, I will show you that in a minute as well. In my main app I actually have here a function on the home, handle the current screen, and that just uses the Firebase authentication if the authentication changed. So if there's a data, go to the home screen, and others, well, when it's still waiting, it shows a loading screen that doesn't do anything, and otherwise it goes to the startup, and the startup is the screen that I just described where you can go and log in. So after I did the login, the authentication changes, this stream gets new data, and it is loading my home screen. So now I actually have the whole login sequence working. Now, of course, what we can see here, if I go back to my simulator again, I can log out, because you need a log out button to show this again. Of course, I can go to the register and type that and all that stuff. Now, that also all works. I'm not going to demo it here, but it works the same way as it does in the iOS application. But I cannot really show it yet, because after registering, I also need to create a user record in the data store. And that part I haven't implemented yet. So far, I only use Firebase authentication to do the authentication, but I haven't implemented Firestore yet to do that. So that's something I'm going to do in the next video. Now, this quickly shows you that I'm exploring other ways to build an Android application. I like this Firebase. I think it is a very nice tool. It gives you a lot of flexibility to simply, from code, write your user interface. It will run both on iOS and Android. In the future version, I will show a little bit more demos on Android as well. And I continue working on this on the side. So this is not the main project, because I still have features to implement in the iOS app, but gradually on the side I'll also investigate and work more on the Flutter thing. Now, I hope you like that. I hope you're interested in seeing more Flutter videos. If that's the case, leave a comment below and I might even do more work on Flutter. And I appreciate your likes and subscriptions. So for now, I'll see you in the next video and we'll see what we're going to cover then. I'll thank you for watching.